Welcome back. So Asia is suggesting that we'll have a positive start to begin with. Let's straight away distill this down to stocks and the ones that should be on your radar this morning. We'll start off with Parikshit. He's bringing us some policy news, some expectations on the e-bus side, and that could impact auto stocks today. Parikshit, morning. What are you picking up?
Well, this is definitely important because the government has been looking at having 8 lakh electric buses on the road by 2030. Now, in a bid to give a fillip to that plan, they are planning a de-risking fund to the tune of 30,000 crores, which would actually incentivize private banks, the private sector, to lend to companies, to aggregators who want to acquire electric buses. Till now, the government has found that lending to the private sector when it comes to electric vehicles or for acquiring electric vehicles has been very slow. There is reluctance on their part because of the uncertainties around the electric vehicle ecosystem in India and also around charging infrastructure. So in order to avoid that and cross that hurdle, they want to be a guarantor of loans to this sector. So this fund will serve as a corpus for acquisition of buses for the government, for PSUs, and as a de-risking fund for the private sector. So the government is in talks with the likes of SIDBI, several private bus aggregators, and this will also involve setting up of bus charging infrastructure. And the same de-risking fund will apply to the private sector who wants to set up private public charging infrastructure. And the same will be available for trucks as well. So let's see how this story comes together. There is a lot of discussion on FAME and FAME 3. Whether this will be a part of the FAME scheme, that remains to be seen.
All right, Parikshit, thanks very much for that. That's an important story from a listed universe perspective as well. And we'll try and get in companies to react to that. Thanks very much. Well, let's move on and talk about the other what's likely to be the big stock of the day, Polycab. The stock took a big hit day before yesterday. Yesterday barely recovered, nothing at all actually. And yesterday post-market hours, we had information from the IT department coming in and talking about what they found with their investigation with Polycab. We've heard from the company, but this is going to be important. Timsy is here with more. Timsy.
Well, that's right. The IT department actually came out with a press release saying that it conducted search operations in Mumbai.
Okay, I think that line is a little patchy, so we can probably just come back on Polycab. That's an important story, so we'll get a clearer line and go back to Timsy. But in the meanwhile, let's talk about Phoenix Mills as well. Sonal is standing by with more on this one. Sonal, good morning.
Good morning, Prashant. Well, Q3 was good for Phoenix Mills in terms of their operational update. They say that total consumption, that is the retail consumption, it has gone up by 24% on a YOY basis to come in at 3,287 crore rupees. Of course, it was, led by a lot of these new mall additions that have happened in Bengaluru, in Pune. And if we calculate on a like-to-like basis, the consumption is up 4% on a YOY basis. The company says newly launched malls contributed a lot to the consumption and they expect it to continue going forward. If we talk about their hotel business as well, their average room rentals have shot up in how? St. Regis, that one has seen a growth of 23% in room rentals, and the Marriott Agra property has seen a 9% increase in rentals, and this is not on the cost of higher occupancy. Occupancy is up just 1% on a YOY basis, but yes, good rentals and good consumption in both their malls and hotels business.
Okay, all right, Sonal, thank you very much for that. That's Phoenix Mills in focus. We are back to tracking some of these bank quarterly updates. Abhishek, good morning. You're looking at Bank of India?
Well, Bank of India has reported good numbers, especially with respect to sequential loan growth or quarter-on-quarter loan growth, which augurs well for its net interest margin as the credit deposit ratio is the highest in last 8 years or even more. Take a look at the numbers. Deposits are up 6.7% YOY and about 0.9% sequentially. In this, the domestic deposit is almost flat on a sequential basis. Advances growth is at 11.5% YOY and about 4.2% sequentially. In this, the domestic advances are up 11.6% YOY and about 4.2% sequentially. So you are seeing an improvement in credit deposit ratio, which has jumped up to 79.7% versus 77.2% in the previous quarter. This CD ratio is the highest that you are seeing in last 33 quarters or even more. Domestic CD ratio nearly about 80%, 79.5% versus 75.5% in the previous quarter. Augurs well for net interest margin, which may improve or remain healthy for them. Back to you.
Okay, all right. Thanks a lot for that, Abhishek. Well, let's go back to Timsy. She's joining us to give us an update in terms of the searches on Polycab. Timsi, go ahead.
Well, yes. IT department in a press release last evening has mentioned that they conducted search operations in Mumbai at a group engaged in manufacturing of wires. Now, the evidences that IT department has got during the investigation is that they've got the modus operandi of tax evasion, which was that the flagship company has made unaccounted cash sales of around 1,000 crore rupees. Also, unaccounted payment of 400 crore rupees made by a distributor on behalf of the flagship company, and non-genuine expenses of about 100 crores have also been identified. Remember, very clearly, IT department did not mention the name of the company, but sources said that the company in question here is Polycab. Let's see what happens now. How does the company react to the investigation findings of the IT department? And yes, what is the final tax outgo that the company has to make? That is yet to be ascertained.
Going to be the stock of the day, Polycab. That's the one that we're looking at. Well, let's focus on Kalyani Steels. You know, for the last many years, every time the management comes on the channel, we have been asking them, what are you going to do with the cash in its books? Well, finally, I think for the first time in a very long time, I'm seeing it at least last 5-10 years. I don't think I've seen them do any kind of, inorganic growth. But that's the big news that came in yesterday. They've gone ahead and they're the successful bidder for the acquisition of assets of Kaminini Steel. Now, this is a unit that has a capacity of close to around 3.5 lakh tons, and they bought this under the IBC route. The total cash consideration that they paid is around 450 crores. The management has told us, that they have adequate amount of cash. I think most of this will be funded via the cash in its book. So it's good news coming in for Kalyani Steel. The stock is up close to around 10% in the last 1 month. So maybe the street was expecting something on that front. But I think the street will like this because finally there is some utilization of that big cash balance that they've had.
Okay, that's Kalyani Steels in focus as well. With that, let's move to Vivek. He's watching out for a couple of names as well this morning. Vivek, good morning. Which ones are these?
Well, good morning. Well, the first company on my radar is Axis Gates Tech. Now, the company yesterday in a filing to the exchanges said that they're looking to raise funds via the QIP route. The floor price for this particular QIP as per the SEBI formula works out to around 696 rupees a share. However, we did access the term sheet, so sources tell us that this is a close to 300 crore fundraising that the company is looking to do, which implies close to a 12% dilution of the current equity base. Company plans to utilize the proceeds of this particular issue majorly for debt reduction and for working capital requirements. The second stock on our radar, it's positive as far as steel strip wheels is concerned. Now, from the Commerce Ministry, we understand that the DGTR, which is the Directorate General of Trade Remedies, has gone ahead and approved and recommended an anti-dumping duty on aluminium alloy road wheel imports for a period of 5 years. We understand that Steel Strips was one of the companies to have asked for an ADD for the aluminium alloy wheel. So watch out for Steel Strips. It could be at least open in the green as far as today's trade is concerned.
Okay, all right, got that, Vivek. Thank you very much for those stocks as well. Here's a quick recap of our list of stocks to watch this morning. The ones that have positive news around them are Tata Motors, Ashok Leyland, Electra Green Tech, JBM Auto, Phoenix Mills, Bank of India, Kalyani Steels, and Steel Strips and Wheels. The ones that have negative news flow around them are, of course, Polycab as well as Axis Gates. Let's move on and talk about some of the top broker calls this morning that are of interest that you should be aware of as well. We have Sudarshan joining in for the same. Sudarshan, good morning.
Good morning, Surabhi. So I have 3 stocks which are on brokerage radar. First one is HSBC on Bharti Airtel. It has downgraded the stock to hold largely on the rich valuation, but target is raised to 1125 from 1020 per share. It says growth drivers are intact. Average revenue per user will rise. Second, it's gaining market share in mobile. And third, growth in non-mobile and capex intensity will decline, but stock is fairly valued at current levels. Second is MS on Coforge. It initiates coverage with overweight. Target is rupees 7,200 per share, implying 17% rise from current level. As per MS, Coforge can keep its revenue growth profile higher for longer versus peers. It bakes in a revenue CAGR of 14.7% over FY 24-26 on a constant currency basis. EBIT margin is seen improving by 190 bips over FY 24-26, but valuations are at a premium, but believes it has a potential to sustain. Last is MS on Manappuram Finance. It has an overweight call. Target is rupees 210 per share, indicating 25% upside from current level. It says SEBI putting Asirvad Microfinance IPO in abeyance had a negative impact as reflected in stock price move on Wednesday. But MS thesis is premised on undervaluation based on consolidated earnings. It sees average return on equity of 20% and EPS CAGR of 25% over next 3 years.
Okay, all right. Thanks a lot for that, Sudarshan. Well, let's go across to Manisha Gupta. She's going to tell us what's transpired in the commodity and the currency space overnight. Morning, Manisha.
Morning, Nigel, and thank you for that. Well, we have seen further decline come in for many of these commodities. It isn't very strong as a global environment as we see it, because you are looking at strength in US dollar index. The markets also will watch out for the US inflation data that comes in today, the China inflation and the trade numbers that come in tomorrow. So ahead of all of this, there's a bit of a choppiness that we have seen in the markets. I'll start with the crude oil prices, which still continue to trade below $78 a barrel. There has been pressure as we have seen rise in US crude inventories, and not just crude, the gasoline and the distillates also have seen massive builds up, telling you that the crude product demand in US also seems to be declining, and we have been facing that in much of Europe and Asia in any case. So that continues to weigh on. In case of metals, while gold and silver have been under pressure, but many of the base metal prices also have started 2024 on a weaker note. So whether it's copper, which is trading at a 1-month lows, on an iron ore, which is trading at a 3-week lows, well, almost everything in this week also is headed for a weekly decline.
Okay, well, Manisha, thanks very much for that. So that's commodities in focus. We'll take a quick commercial break here. We'll come back. Deepan Mehta of Elixir Equities will be with us with some fundamental stock chat. A little later, after that, we'll put the spotlight on more stocks, technical ideas, F&O trades, etc. as well. Stay tuned. Coming up.